everyone! Today we are going to be sewing up the Whitney pullover from Sonia Estep Designs, which is this pullover. This is what we will be sewing up, and this is my finished result. And I'm hoping that I can help you guys with the placket and any other questions you may have. So let's go ahead and get started. So the first thing you're going to do is cut out all of your pieces, which I have already done. And these are my left and right placket pieces, and then it's not required, but it is recommended, and I always like to do interfacing on my placket pieces, so I cut out a matching piece of interfacing. So the first thing I'm going to do is apply interfacing to both of my placket pieces. Just iron it on there. And this is just to help stabilize it, and especially if you're going to put snaps or buttonholes of some sort on your interfacing or on your placket, this will help keep those in place and help your placket lay nicer as well. Make sure that's on there. And this is just a relatively lightweight interfacing. It's just what I had on hand. You don't need anything super heavy or anything special. Okay, so I have those on there. So the next thing you're going to do with these placket pieces is you're going to fold over these edges 1/4 inch and press them. And then you'll do both sides of your left placket. And sometimes I like to just, once I get going, I can kind of eyeball it. And this one. Okay, so this one, you can see I folded in those sides, and then this one is a little bit trickier because it has all of the notches, but I like to do these sides here first. And if you're using a thicker fabric, you can always cut your interfacing 1/4 inch in, so that then it's not double layered when you fold it over, so it would just be a little bit smaller. But this is a lighter weight French terry and a lighter weight interfacing, so I'm not super concerned about it. And I keep ironing. There we go. Okay, so then you are going to also fold in the edges here 1/4 inch. And these I do want to measure just to make them this is going to be the point of your placket on the front, and we want that to look very nice and even and clean. So let's see, it can be a little tricky to get. It's just like a pocket kind of. Okay, and then we're also going to fold this side in right here just a little bit and press that. Okay, I'm gonna repress this edge real quick just to freshen up that crease here. Okay, so I have both of those. So the next thing is you are going to interface the back side of your front at the bottom of the placket. So here's my front, and this is the back side of my fabric, and this is the bottom of my placket. So I'm going to take my interfacing, put it on here. Okay, and you want to make sure it's nice and flat and your sides are even, and then just press it on here. And I just did kind of, it's about 1 inch above the top and about 1/2 inch or so below. And this you're going to want to add on there. Okay, so I'm having a bit of a struggle, which is normal, to get these folds to lay nicely. So you can use wash dry or hem tape, or just an Elmer's glue stick. This washes out just the same. I can't find my hem tape, and this is a nice, easy, cheap option you can get pretty much anywhere. So I'm just going to put a little bit of glue on this edge to hold that side down, and then I'm gonna put this under it just to make it a little bit sturdier, and so I don't get glue on my ironing board. Okay, and then I'm gonna fold that up here and here. Get this pressed down, and then we'll fold this corner in here just a bit, and that'll give us a much nicer and more stabilized point, and it is a bit uneven, so I'm going to pull this side in here just a little bit. Okay, there we go. Sometimes you have to add a little bit more glue depending on your fabric. Okay. So there we go. See, nice and even. And I'm just going to set that over here to let dry. All right. So the first sewing piece you are going to do is you're going to take your front piece here. You're going to take your left side placket, okay, and you're going to line up, which this is your left side, the flat one. We're going to line up this crease that you sewed on here, okay, with your right sides together. you're going to line up your raw edges. And here again, this you can use washable hem tape, or I'm going to just put on a little bit of my glue stick. Here, I'm just going to run all the way up, and this will just make sure that my pieces are not shifting or moving around or wrinkling. Okay, so I'm going to line up my top pieces here and then just stick it right on there. And again, you can just use your pins or clips, whatever is easiest for you. But I like to do this method. And so then the next thing we're going to do is we are going to just stitch up this line here on your crease, so at a 1/4 inch seam allowance, and then you're going to go a 1/4 inch past the bottom of your placket cutout, so that is right here. So I'm just going to, since this is the inside of my placket, I'm going to pull this up here and then make sure that's on nice and tight, and go a 1/4 inch here and draw a mark. So that's, I'm going to stitch all the way down to this line. So I'm going to go sew that up and I'll be right back. So once this is on, the next thing you're going to do is you're going to take your right placket piece, which is the piece with the point, and it is going to, basically you're going to do the same thing here. You're going to line up the raw edges and then you're going to stitch on this line. And so when you cut this piece out, you want to make sure that your fabric is facing up, if your pattern piece is facing up, because otherwise you will end up with this piece backwards and you'll have your short end on this side, which you don't want. So I'm just going to go ahead and put some glue on this side first. I like to use the purple glue just because it gives, the whole point of the purple is that then you can see where you have glued, and it does dry clear, so it doesn't give you any problems there. All right, so then I'm just going to line up my raw edges here, press this on, and then this is the same thing. You are going to do this and you're going to sew down a 1/4 inch from your edge. And I will go do that and be right back. So I am back. I had to take a little break, but I have both plackets on here, so that what I did last night is I just took my glue stick and ran it down these folds on both sides. We already pressed them, but sometimes the gluing or using your wash away hem tape just makes it a little bit easier to work with. So what we are going to do, let's see here, this is pulling up a little bit, but that's okay. The next step we are going to do is we are going to fold our plackets in half over the top of our seams here. So if you lay them here, I'll turn it this way and it'll be easier to see here. Okay, so I have my placket here, and you're going to just fold it and line up your folded edge here with your seam here, and we are going to pin. Okay, and this is another place that you can use your glue and hem tape. For now, I'm just gonna pin these on here. And this is a spot where you are going to want to use pins and not clips, because you can't really get a clip onto there nicely. Okay. And then you are going to do the same thing on this side. You're just going to fold it over and match that folded edge. You're going to have your raw edges from your plackets on the inside, so you won't be able to see them. Just pin all the way down. And you can give this a nice press too before you pin it, to give you a nice seam down the middle to make it lay nicer. And then the next thing you're going to do is how we right here, we stitched 1/4 of an inch past your placket line. So what we are going to do now is, you have to be very careful here, be very precise. You're going to take your scissors and you're going to cut from the corner of your placket right to the very edge of your stitch. So you're going to just take one diagonal cut, and I want to make sure I'm not cutting my actual placket piece here. Okay, and you're going to do that on both pieces here. Okay, because this, once you cut these, there's not really much going back that you can do to correct it. So you want to cut right, I like to cut right to that seam there, not quite through it. And so then the next thing you're going to put one more, my placket is, so when you pin, which I didn't do here, you want to make sure that you get those raw edges under there so they don't pop out, and I missed those on my pins. Okay. So then you will flip this over here, and what you're going to do is, so you're going to take this piece here and put it underneath, and your short end of this side and put it underneath as well, so that then when you flip it over, you will have your placket pieces on this side with your little tongue here. And here. So this here, you just want to make sure you're not getting the long end of your placket, and you're going to take your pieces and get them sandwiched in here nice and flat, and you're going to pin it, which I will do here in a second, and then you're going to stitch right across this lip. So where you cut those angled slits, you're going to stitch all the way across, catching both these pieces in, and you really want to make sure they are laying nice and flat in there, and you want to do right from the corner to the corner, otherwise it's going to gap if you come down or have little seams. So I'm going to get this pinned, and then I will go sew it, and I'll be right back. Okay, so I went ahead and I stitched the back side of my shirt, and you can see from the front I just pinned my pocket pieces together to help them lay nicely. And you can see here, and then under this flap, I did find my wash away hem tape, so I did put some on there just to get this stuck on, because it does stick a little bit nicer than the glue. And so this lip is still unhemmed or left out. And then on the back, you can see this is what it looks like. And I just went ahead and I basted it, and I think it looks pretty nice on the front. And what's nice about this placket is that this flap goes over where your placket meets. So if it does bubble a little bit, it's not really an issue. But you can see here I have really nice seams there, and everything is in and it's nice and flat and doesn't bubble. So I will go ahead and put a permanent stitch in there, and then you can trim this. And then once it is here and you have that stitch in how you like it, what you're going to do is, now I need to take these apart, is you're just going to edge stitch on the side of your placket to secure this. You want to make sure you catch the back side in there. That's what's really important here. And you're going to come down and you can add, you're going to go around your V, and you can add a little crisscross detail in there if you would like. And then on this side, you're just going to sew down the edge, and that is all. And when you do this V, so you want to go down and do the V, and when you cross back over, you just want to make sure that you do it above this piece. So you want to make sure that you get it here, so that when it's, so if I sew it right here and I flip it over, you don't see that piece. So if you do it too low, you see that piece will stick out on the back, which isn't a huge deal, but we just want to try and make this look as nice as possible. So I'm going to go ahead and go and top stitch those, and then I will be back. Okay, I am back, and I have my placket top stitched, and it looks great. One thing, I don't like to back stitch on these, it just, because then you can really see it, and especially because I decided to use white because I don't have a thread that matches this other color, and there was enough white in here that I thought it was fine, but I don't want that double stitching from a back stitch to pop out. So I just my thread in a needle, and it's a little hard to pull through on here because of how thick it is, but just push it, and then I just like to tie a knot in the back that secures that thread for you. And sometimes I put some fray stop on there just to secure it. But one thing about when you top stitch this that I forgot to mention, you want to do this side first. So your shorter side, you're going to go all the way up down your side, and then when you do this side, so here's my triangle, I like to add an extra line because then I can do it all in one step without having to start and stop. And you can see here I did take some chalk, and what I did is I just measured from corner to corner. I did up 1 inch and I made a 1 inch box, and then I drew a line of from corner to corner so that I could make these nice and straight. And I wanted to show you, this is the steps I took to be able to do this all in one stitch without having to stop. So you start at the top, go all the way down, and then you do your points. And so you'll you do have to pick your presser foot up, but you want to put your needle down and pivot to here, and then you're going to go across your first angle, and then a straight across, and then another angle across, and then you're going to finish up here, and then that's where I like to leave my tails and tie it off. So then the next step on the pattern it says to add your buttons or snaps or whatever you're going to do. I am going to do snaps, but I'm just going to wait until the end to do those, just personal preference. If I was going to do buttonholes, I would do those now just because there's less bulk, but with snaps it's not really too much of an issue. And I want to measure with having my hood and everything on. So other than that, you can do your buttonholes and snaps now, and if not, we are just going to take, this is your front piece, we're going to take your back piece, and you're going to find your shoulder seams here and match them up here. And I don't use too many clips, but I'm just going to for now. So match them up, and I like to do both at the same time, so it's right sides together, and match it up at the corners. And then you are going to sew across, and this part I will do on my serger. You can do it on a sewing machine with a stretch stitch if you like, so I will go do that and be right back. Okay, so I have my shoulder seams sewn, and the next step is to do your sleeves. So when I do my sleeves, I like to open up my sleeve, and I like to, on these patterns, they don't have a notch or anything, but the sleeves are side specific, so there's a front and a back to the sleeves. So I just made my own little notch on the front. You can mark it with a pen or marker, or just have your pattern piece with it. So this is my front, so I need my other sleeve. So this is the front of the shirt, so that just means that this front corner with my notch is going to match up here, and I'll just clip it around, and then since I will serge it, I'll just serge right over that notch. And I like to have all my seams facing towards the back, so I pin that down and just kind of spin it. And then you do the same thing, the exact same thing on the other side. Not any different, so I'll just do this one, and then I will go sew that on, and I'll get both of them sewn on. Okay, so I got both of my sleeves sewn on, and I did just do the straight sleeves, but these steps are exactly the same no matter which sleeve you chose. So once you have your sleeves sewn on, you are going to fold it, so now it is actually going to resemble a shirt. You have your sleeves and your body. So what I like to do is I start at my armpit and I line up those seams, and I like to fold, doesn't really matter which way, but I fold one and overlap them just to reduce the bulk. So one is folded down and one is folded up, and that kind of helps make a notch to catch that seam so that they line up better when you sew. And then just pin or clip down your sleeve. So this way, if it's uneven, it's not uneven at the armpit and you don't get a wonky seam that doesn't line up there. You can just, so see I'm off a little bit there, but that's okay. I'll just sew it up, and then I will trim it straight when I'm done. And the same thing on the side, I just go from the armpit down, and this you will do on both sides again. And same thing, I like to just go from the armpit, and here match up pretty well, almost perfect. So pin, and then I usually start at the wrist for preference. You can start at the body, it doesn't matter, and you just will sew all the way up, and you'll pivot a little bit at the armpit, and all the way down, and again you would do that on both sides, so I'll go do that and be right back. Okay, so now once you have those side seams and sleeves sewn up, you will have pretty much a shirt. You're just missing a few parts, but it should look like a shirt that you can put on and technically could wear. So the like I said, I only did the regular sleeves, but if you were doing the bishop sleeves at this point, you would put in a gathering stitch here and gather that, so that's really the only difference there. So then you would gather that, and once it's gathered, you would be at this step then. So the next step is you're going to take your cuff pieces, so you should have two, and you are going to fold them in half like so, and you're just going to stitch them up here. So I will go get those sewn up real quick. All right, so I got my cuffs sewn, and I forgot to say right sides together, and again serged. So the next thing you're going to do is you're just going to take your cuffs, and I like to line up my seams, and you're just going to fold it in half so that your right sides are out. And I like to just put a clip on my seams just to keep them nice and lined up, and then I pull it and find my center point and put another clip there. And then what you're going to do next is you're going to take your sleeve, and some people do this reverse. They have their sleeve, their piece right side out. I like to have it inside out and put my cuff on the inside. I just find it easier to stretch it to fit when it's inside. But just again, personal preference. So what I like to do is I fold my seams one way. So here they're folded this way, and then I put it inside of my sleeve, and I fold this seam the opposite way. And again, I like to try to make this seam on the garment face the back. That's just what my mom taught me, and that's just what I've always done. So I like to line those up and kind of nest them in each other, and then I do the same thing again. I find that center point, and then I take my other pin here and match it up. And it doesn't matter how you put your cuff in there unless you have a directional print, which, so this print, it's just marbled, it's random, it doesn't really have a rhyme or reason, so it doesn't matter. But if you have a directional print, like say this print, where your pumpkins are all facing upwards, when you put your cuff on, you want your pumpkins facing upwards. You don't want them upside down. So you just want to make sure that when you would unfold it, that your prints would be right side up the whole time. So then you'll do this on both sides now, and then you'll just sew, and you'll stretch it to fit as you sew. And if you did it gathered, the bishop sleeve, your sleeve would be gathered to the size of the cuff, so you would just slide your cuff in, and you shouldn't have to do much stretching. It should just fit right in, and you sew around. Okay, so now I am on to the hood, and what you are going to do if you are going to put a drawstring in is you want your markings, which are on the pattern, so you trace those over. I just used a little bit of tailor's chalk on there just so I can see. And what you want to do is you're going to flip it over to the wrong side, and you want to put a little bit of interfacing on there. So I'm just going to press this on. This is to just stabilize whether you're doing a buttonhole or an eyelet there. You don't have to do a drawstring, but it's just a nice little touch, so I'm going to add one in. So you want to do this on both pieces, and I am going to do a buttonhole. So I'm going to put this on, and then I will go over to my machine and sew on my buttonholes. So do this on both sides here. And it's just a little piece about 1 inch by maybe 1.5 inches. Doesn't have to be anything huge, nothing special. I'll just get that on there, and then I will go sew those buttonholes. All right, so I got my buttonholes stitched on there. And the other thing, if using knit fabric, if buttonholes scare you, just practice before you do it on your actual garment, because they are kind of a pain to rip out. So practice. And the other thing, if they really scare you that much, or you just can't get it down and you really still want to do a drawstring and don't have eyelets, if you put interfacing on the back and you just give it a mark, you can successfully I would just mark it, and you could just cut a hole in it, and it's not going to fray or do anything, especially if you have interfacing on it and it's a knit. So that is an option. It just won't have quite as clean of a finish, but most people probably would never even notice. So I have my buttonholes here, and the way I like to do it is I just take my seam ripper and I insert one point at the end, and then I go to the middle-ish and I just pull through, and I do it on the other side. You want to make sure, the reason I go in the middle is to make sure that I don't cut through the ends of my buttonhole. And then I'll just go through with some scissors and kind of clean that up, just get those frays off. So I'll do that. I'm gonna trim those still on both sides. And your buttonhole size is going to depend on the size of drawstring that you're using. Mine is relatively a thicker one, so I wanted to make sure I had enough room to get it in and out easily. So next, I will just lay my hood pieces on top of each other with right sides together and line them up, and you're just going to stitch from the top. I'll lay it this way. Okay, so here's my buttonholes. You're going to stitch the top all the way around and down to the neck. All right, so I have my hood sewn. As you can see, now it looks like a hood, and it's all one piece. So the next thing you're going to do is you're going to take your shirt piece here. Put the hook to me. Okay, so you're going to take your shirt piece, and you're going to then take your hood. So I have my shirt right sides out, and what you're going to do is take the right side of your hood and line it up. Okay, you're going to come around the back here and line up your raw edge with the edge of your placket. So, and then I'm just going to do this part first. I'm going to wrap it around here so you make kind of a sandwich with your placket in the hood. And I like to do that on both ends first, so that's the same thing here. You just take your other side, and you're going to just, again, take that side that should kind of line up with your buttonhole a little bit, wrap it around there, and you want all of your raw edges on up here around your neckline to line up. So you're just going to pin that on. Then I like to find my middle of the back of my shirt here and line that up with the middle of my hood, and then just kind of match up the shoulder points, and if you need to use more pins or clip, that's okay. And you may have to stretch your shirt a little bit, not a ton, to get your hood in. And then I'm just going to go, and you're going to start here, and you're going to just serge over or sew over your little sandwich piece all the way around and back through. All right, so I went ahead and got my hood stitched on, and so this is what it will look like on your ends, both ends. And then so what you're going to do is then you're just going to fold your hood piece up, so then it gives this nice clean edge on the transition from your placket to your hood. And you should have, if you did your buttonholes or eyelets, those should be on the outside of your hood. So here's kind of that edge. And so then what we're going to do next is fold this over. You're going to line it up with your placket here, and I'm just going to give it a quick press. You could, before you attach your hood, if it bothers you, if you're going to just top stitch it on your regular machine like I am, you don't have a cover stitch, you could serge this edge before you attached your hood just to give it a little bit of a cleaner finish, but I don't really mind it, and honestly sometimes I think adding this serging just makes it stand out even more than just a stitch because it's a contrast to the fabric. If you don't have a matching color, and I'm going to finish this off here and I'll just tuck it under. But so this should be about an inch or so. I just like to give it a nice press so that my top stitching is nice and even. And so once you get that pressed, and again here you could use your wash away hem tape or a glue stick to press it down. But that is all. So then I will, now that I have this on here, I'm going to just go and top stitch starting here and go all the way around, and I won't back stitch. I will do the same thing. I'll leave long tails on both ends and pull them through and tie them just so there's not that bulky stitch there. All right, so I went ahead and got my hood attached. So if you aren't doing a drawstring and you already have your closures on, this is your last step. It is just to hem, and I am going to hem before I add my drawstring or anything. I just like to do things before there's any extras added, so if I don't have to deal with my drawstring flopping around when I'm trying to hem, I'm not going to, because there's really no reason. So again, this is the same thing. You can go ahead and use your cover stitch or a regular machine, and you could use a straight stitch or a zigzag. I think I am going to just use a straight stitch. I'm going to just do a long straight stitch because this doesn't really need to stretch at the bottom. I don't know, I might change my mind. But you could, this is like the hood, you could serge this if you were doing it on your regular machine to give it kind of a faux cover stitch look, or you could use a twin needle here as well. But I'm going to press this up. I'm not going to serge it because this is just for me and I don't feel like it's really a necessity, so I'm not going to do it. So just press this up an inch and I will get this pressed, and then I am going to go hem it and I'll be back. All right, so I went ahead and got it hemmed, and I did decide I did a triple zigzag. It just gives it a little bit more stretch, just so I don't have to worry as much about seams popping. And I don't know, I love a triple zigzag. It just is kind of a little bit more decorative and more fun than just like your basic zigzag, and still looks pretty and neat. And I also love how it can kind of catch the back. I don't know, just a personal preference, but one of my favorite stitches. And I did go ahead and I added my snaps, just so you could see. I just did 4 here, and I love, love, love how these look on here. And these are just Dritz snaps. These are the long prong ones. I ordered these on Amazon. They have the regular length prongs, typically at a Joann's or Hobby Lobby, anything like that. And then the very last step, if you are not doing a drawstring, then you are done. But I am going to, so I am just going to, I don't know how long I went. I'm using my bobbin, which is just this little nifty tool. You just kind of like tweezers, but you pinch and then this slides down and holds it in place. You can use a safety pin or there's lots of other contraptions. And I'm just going to slide it in my buttonhole and pull through, and then once I get it, I will kind of just judge how long I want it and then cut it and then tie them off, and I am done. So if you have any questions, let me know. If not, enjoy your new Whitney pullover. And let's see, just pull this through here. And if you have any questions, you can drop them in the comments. And you can also find my Instagram page and a link to the pattern down below.